liberal democracy. And today I want us to look at what we call nationalism. We've seen different key features of liberal kind of government. So today I want us to analyze the word nationalism. In the first place, we normally hear people saying we are nationalistic. We are normally hearing we normally hear the word nationalism. We've heard it several times with different people speaking it. But what is the meaning of the word nationalism? Who is that person that they call a nationalistic person? Nationalism is a political idea or ideology of movement that emphasizes the interests, culture, and identity of a particular nation or group. It advocates for what we call sovereignty and self-determination of nations, and often seeks to unify people with shared cultural, ethnic, or historical background. Nationalism can influence the formation of states, shape political movements, and impact international relations. So in short term, nationalism, when we say the word nationalism, we look at what we call this is a political ideology or movement that emphasizes the interests, culture, and identity of particular groups, or identity of a particular group, or identity of a particular nation. Altogether, that is the love one has for his nation, that is the love one has for his culture, that's the love one has for his country. So nationalism, it is a combination of interest in culture and the identity of specific groups or specific individuals altogether. So nationalism carries a lot of things. For you to be nationalistic, you must love what you're doing, you must love your country, you must love your culture, you must love everything altogether. So the emergence of nationalism is closely linked to the development of modern political system, including liberal democracy. Nationalism often intersects with liberal democratic idea by promoting self-governance and national sovereignty. However, it can also present challenges to liberal democracy when it fosters what we call exclusionary practices or conflict with the democratic principle of equality and diversity. Are we together? So I want us to look at a number of things under nationalism. So we have early development of nationalism, So early development of nationalism, that is between the 16th and 17th centuries. So we look at what we call the pre-modern nationalistic. We call it the settlements. So in the 16th and the 17th centuries, the concept of nationalism was not fully developed. So between the two centuries, the idea of nationalism, the concept of nationalism had not yet developed or had not yet given out the fruits altogether. But early forms of nationalistic segments began to emerge. At least there are some features, some symptoms of nationalism began to emerge, began to rise, began to come out. So the rise of national states and the decline of federalism laid the groundwork for more organized nationalistic movements in the later centuries. Altogether, so we have the dynamic state and the territorial identity. So as dynamic states consolidated power, rulers began to emphasize territorial identity, and the nations of a unified political entity So the idea of so the idea began, at least there was what you call cohesive states with the common identity started to take shape. So the idea of nationalism between the 16th and the 17th century, the concept of nationalism was just showing symptoms, was just showing signs, but for it itself had not yet matured. However, with the time, it started to rise. So religious and cultural identity, we say the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. So the Protestant Reformation and the subsequent Counter-Reformation contributed to the development of national identities. So religious conflicts often reinforced the idea of distinct national communities with their own cultural and religious identity. So we're saying that the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, and we say that the Protestant Reformation and the subsequent Counter-Reformation contributed to the development of the national identity. Within religion, they started to emphasize nationalistic feelings. They started to emphasize nationalism, the idea of nationalism with its people. We have the national language and culture. So the spread of national languages and the literature began to foster the sense of cultural unity. So this period saw the rise of, we call them the vernacular languages as the symbols of national identity, replacing Latin as the language of the administration and culture. So by then there was specific language used, Latin, but time came and there was the enforcement. Different languages began to rise. People began to use different languages, specific languages, and at least there was some bit of space whereby people used to speak their languages freely without being dictated. So nationalism is in the 19th century. Nationalism in the 19th century. So the rise of modern nationalism. The rise of modern nationalism. We have the romantic nationalism. So the 19th century witnessed the rise of romantic nationalism, which emphasized the importance of culture, language, and historical heritage in identifying what we call national identity. So the romantic thinkers celebrated folk traditions, myths, and historical narratives as central to national unity. So there was romantic nationalism. We are seeing the idea of nationalism, how it developed slowly and slowly, how the concept of nationalism began to develop within different people and the specific areas. So revolutions and national movements. So the 19th century was marked by a series of revolutionary movements. Different revolutions began. Different group societies, different areas, people began to organize revolutions, and within this organization of revolution, the spirit of nationalism kept on developing among the people. Are we together? So revolutionary movements are driven by nationalistic and liberal ideas. So the revolutions of 1848, for example, these took place in Europe. We saw that in Europe there are some movements that emerged. The revolutions emerged in Europe, but we believe that these revolutions were pushed by nationalistic and liberal ideas. altogether. For example, in 1848, a revolution broke up in France, organized against the Orient monarchy, that is the government of Louis Philippe. And then in Austria, they were also organized against the government of Prince von Clement-Wessel-Betant. So all these are believed to have been fueled by the nationalistic and liberal ideas. Then we have unification of German and Italy. It is also a good point that can portray, that can bring out the idea of nationalism. Germans in 1870s, they had the idea of unification, and they fought tooth and nail to ensure that they get their independence, they get what they wanted out of their foreign rulers, the Austrian Empire. So Otto von Bismarck, the principle of the blood and iron, led to the unification of Germany under Prussia's leadership. Remember, one of the obstacles towards the German unification that they did not have a modern state. But this time around, Prussia stood and acted as a leader in the unification struggle. So the creation of a unified German empire that was successful in 1871 marked a significant triumph of nationalistic ambitions in Europe. The word triumph means success. Made a successful, a significant success, a significant achievement of nationalistic ambitions in Europe. Then we have Italian unification. So Count Camillo di Cavour and Giuseppe Galbariti, Giuseppe Mazzini played a significant role in the unification struggle of Italy. So the process of consolidating various Italian states in a single nation state was driven by nationalistic ideas of unification. So all these things helped to bring out the idea of nationalism. A big submit from here. Have a good day.